My name is Jennifer Williams, and I am debating the not guilty plea for reasonable doubt in the case of the 18-year-old accused in the stabbing death of his father, where a guilty verdict would mean an automatic death sentence. With such harsh consequences, I feel that any question at all or any doubt at all is reasonable enough for this young man to be found innocent and found not guilty. This young man is innocent until proven guilty according to the 14th Amendment in the U.S. Constitution. This young man had no true motive to murder his father. It was alleged that a couple of hours before that there was an altercation that took place between the young man and his father, where the young man was struck by his father. That isn't anything unordinary according to the neighbors and the people who lived in that neighborhood, and I don't think that that's severe enough to be a true motive for murder. It was also later brought to the attention of the jury that the father had issues with alcohol as well as gambling. That alone would be reason enough for anyone else to have had an issue as well as a motive to want him dead. This young man was questioned by law enforcement in the kitchen of his home while his father lay lifelessly in the next room on the floor. Immediately after, this young man had lost his only living parent, and of course he couldn't have an exact remembrance of the things that occurred earlier in that night, such as the movies he had seen and the characters who played in them. This young man was traumatized. He was under extreme distress. The older gentleman who lived down the stairs from this young man, his father, claims that he heard the voice of the young man and could definitely identify that it was his voice, in fact. I kind of find that hard to believe because there was another witness that claims that there was an L train going by at the exact time that the murder took place. If there was an L train going by, then the sound of the train alone would have muffled any voice that he could have thought that he heard, definitely not being able to identify a person for sure, in fact, 100%. There were prints left on the knife, on the murder weapon. I mean, if this was premeditated enough to the point where he had sense enough to wipe off the prints off of the weapon, why would he return back to the scene 3 hours later? My next to last point, the stab wounds were said to be in a downward motion, and this young man was known to be basically a thug who grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. It was mentioned that he was very good with a knife, and that I'm assuming that he had other stabbing altercations with other people and was considered basically a professional when it came to using switchblades. I find it really hard to believe that he would have misused a weapon that he was so proud of that he couldn't wait to show his friends. And not only that, but misused something that he, without a doubt, knew exactly how to use it. Psychologists stated that the young man had strong homicidal tendencies, that he had murder in his unconscious mind. In fact, there are many individuals that are capable of murder. I'd like to argue that, in fact, we're all capable of anything. But just because he was, in fact, capable of committing this murder does not 100% mean that this young man committed this crime. I think that he is not guilty due to reasonable doubt. The juror that I chose was juror number 8. He never yielded and he never showed any prejudice in any way. He was extremely fair when it came to considering all angles of the trial and the things that were being said. I would absolutely want him as a juror if I were being charged with a crime.